I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is the village board meeting, Tuesday, June 24th. We'll all stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Costa?
Present.
Trustee DeVivo? Present. Trustee Janice?
Present.
Trustee Sable? Trustee Seuss? Present. Trustee Yukich?
Present.
Mayor Daley?
Present. Okay, this would be D. Are there any amendments to the agenda?
I have a question on the agenda.
Sure.
On new business, N1 and 2, even though the agenda shows them as separate items, if anything is done, because it's on the same supplement sheet, we are going to handle them individually, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions about the agenda? All right, is there a motion? This would be E. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of April 22nd, 2014 meeting?
So moved.
First by Trustee Costa,
Second.
second by Trustee Swees. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion carries. Okay, under recognition.
Gary, you may have to hold on that.
Pardon me?
That involves trustees, so you may have to hold on the right.
Okay, then we'll get back to recognition a little bit later. We'll go to schedules of accounts payable. Is there a motion to approve the accounts payable for the period of May 29th to June 25th, 2014? First by Trustee DeVivo,
Second.
second by Trustee Costa. Is there any discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Costa?
Aye.
Trustee DeVivo? Aye. Trustee Janice?
Aye.
Trustee Swees? Trustee Yukich?
Aye.
Motion carries. This is reports and communications from the mayor and other officers. Some sad news here. Lisa Radonio, daughter of Senator Christine Radonio, sadly passed away on June 18th. She was only 31 years old. Lisa Radonio worked for 7 years in D.C. as an executive assistant in Senator Mark Kirk's Capitol Hill office. She is described by those who knew her as a very generous, fun-loving, and terrific person. Our thoughts and prayers are with the Radonio family during this very difficult time. Under the State of Illinois Yellow Dot Program, the Illinois Department of Transportation recently created a new traffic safety initiative designed to provide first responders with medical information for persons involved in vehicle crashes. Participants in this voluntary program are given a yellow dot decal for their vehicle's rear window and a corresponding yellow folder for their glove compartment. The yellow dot serves as an indicator to public safety personnel that the yellow folder containing important medical information about the motorist may be found in the vehicle's glove compartment. Having this information on hand will allow first responders to make more informed decisions regarding emergency medical treatment. The Yellow IDOT program packets are free and can be found in the lobby of the Village Hall. An update on the 2014 Drainage Improvement Program. On June 18th, the village opened bids for the second phase of the 2014 Drainage Improvement Program. This project will involve the reconstruction of existing detention ponds in the Meadowview and Derby Meadows subdivisions. Of the two bids received, Copenhagen Construction submitted the low bid in the approximate amount of $298,000. Staff will be bringing this proposal before the board in the upcoming meeting. On the same date, the Homer Township Highway Department opened bids for the 2014 roadway paving program. Of the 7 bids received, P.T. Farrow was the apparent low bidder in the approximate amount of $1,231,000. This bid was significantly below the estimated cost of the project and even below the 2013 cost. As a result, the board will be discussing later in the meeting the option of adding additional roads from several of the non-LOC subdivisions to possibly be completed as a part of the 2014 roadway paving program. Okay, during the workshop portion of the city board's meeting, we will have representatives of Hazel Levine Associates present the preliminary draft of the 159th Street corridor planning study they developed. After the presentation of the preliminary draft, Hazel Levine will answer questions from the village board. Once the final draft is prepared, the village will notice for a public hearing of the study. The public hearing process will allow for additional feedback and further revisions if necessary. A couple of the preliminary draft plans, a copy of the preliminary draft plan has been on the village's website for the public to review. The last step in the process will be the final presentation to the village board for adoption. And finally, congratulations go out to Homer Glen native Carolyn Bradrich, who was crowned Miss Iowa this year and went on to represent the state of Iowa in the Miss USA pageant earlier this month. She placed as the 5th runner-up in the competition and was found to be a viewer favorite. Congratulations, Carolyn. Her father actually is on the planning commission here for Homer Glen. And that concludes the mayor's report. We'll start down with trustee reports with Trustee Costa. And for the record, Trustee Sabo just read.
No report tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Yukich.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mine's going to be simple. We have the festival that's going to be starting Thursday evening. Hopefully the weather works with us. Right now the field is a little bit wet, but it's not real bad. They finished putting the tents up today, putting the floors in on the restaurants area, and the carnival is pretty much set up. So Thursday it starts. We also have the fireworks Thursday night unless we have a rain problem. Then it'll be moved to Friday. That's my report, Mayor.
Thank you, Trustee Yukich. Trustee Sabo.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we should pass out some letters first. Reporting for the Environment Committee, the first topic is stargazing. On June 20th, 2014, the Environment Committee reports that stargazing event scheduled for June 20th between 9 and 11 was held in Homer Township's Tratina Farm, even though rain was predicted. 9 viewing stations were set up by the astronomers by Kankakee Area Stargazers, the Naperville Astronomical Association, and Southwest Astronomy Observers Group. Approximately 100 adults, children, and high school students enjoyed learning about and viewing the night sky. There were many questions about sky glow from surrounding areas and growing concerns of light pollution. The committee extends its appreciation to Will County School District 92, Homer Township, Gales for Booton, and Homer Glen EMA for assisting in making stargazing a successful outreach program once again. The next stargazing event for 2013 is scheduled for October 17th. The time has changed to 8 to 10. The International Dark Sky Association topic. The International Dark Sky Association has announced that Beverly Shores in Indiana has been named the world's 7th International Dark Sky Community in their effort to protect the nighttime environment. Residents have long been concerned about the effects of excess artificial light at night. And I do have some literature here if people want to read more about it. Last topic is the Caton Farm Bruce Road SRA. And the letters that I have passed out are the last correspondence from the Village of Homer Glen. Village of Homer Glen wrote a letter on May 28th to Bruce Gould, Director of Transportation at Will County, regarding Homer Glen's position of not being in favor of the middle alignment. Mr. Gould responded on June 5th that Homer Glen could request a meeting with the Transportation Corridor Committee, TCC, by providing possible meeting dates. On June 19th, the village responded that the village board is looking into potential dates to provide Mr. Gould for a meeting at the TCC committee, Thank you. And that's my report.
Thank you, Trustee Sabo. Trustee K. Janice.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to report on behalf of the Economic Development Committee. Our last meeting, we discussed organizing our business visits for retention and growth in Homer Glen. Our agenda is to seek to understand the hardships our businesses are facing in today's environment, as well as the environment in Homer Glen. We wish to work to support a positive atmosphere for our businesses to grow and thrive. The dates of these visits will be announced in the near future. This is a win-win situation as we seek to understand their hardships that they face on day-to-day operations and expenses. As a win-win is for Homer Glen, the taxpayers, the village, and all the social activities the village provides. We also discussed and have been discussing regulatory climate balance index scorecards. This scorecard and the discussions we have is to create a tool of measurement as it relates to required procedures, times, costs to develop and execute the opening of a new business and home ownership as benchmarked from similar sized municipalities from across the country. The information and values that we receive will set forth a procedure of local laws, ordinances, and an environment, again, for all of us to thrive and grow economically and disposition. We'll keep you posted as this balanced scorecard on regulatory environment process continues into the future. But we are working with several professional folks and having conversations with several people on this balanced scorecard. It is already going national, and we're going to join right in and obtaining as much information as possible and try to execute it as positively as possible in Homer Glen. That's it, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Trustee Kajanis. Trustee Suisse?
Thank you, Mayor. Reporting for the Homer Harvest Days Committee. Homer Harvest Days will take place on September 6th and 7th at the Trantina Farm on 151st Street. We are looking for vendors and demonstrators that can be incorporated into a historic or Harvest Days theme. For further information, please use the www.homerharvestdays.com address, while issues with the .org address are being corrected. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Trustee Suisse. Trustee DeVivo?
Thank you, Mayor. We had our Parks and Recreation Committee meeting last night, June 23rd. I'd like to you all to mark your calendar because we are planning the Erin Hills Park dedication for July 19th at 11 o'clock at the park in Erin Hills. Everyone is invited. We will be serving ice cream and giving away Frisbees. I know it was a long time coming, but well worth the wait. This is an excellent example of how we can combine active and passive recreation for the enjoyment of the entire community. The park is surrounded by wetlands, trails, ponds, with a lookout to nature, but also has a putting green, swings, and a small pavilion, which of course sits on permeable pavers. I do hope everyone will ride out to see it, and please join us for this event. At our meeting last night, we formed a subcommittee to review and add to our current park rules and regulations, which were adopted in ordinance form on June 26 of 2012, rules specific to Woodbine development. Even though we will not need to have these completed rules for the Woodbine Park property until early next year, we wanted to get started. I'd like everyone to know I'll let everyone know when we plan to meet, and by the way, you all should go back and look at the current rules to refresh your memory. We will, of course, be looking for input from the board. The Park and Recreation Committee also had a discussion on the road trip that was made earlier this month. We reviewed the pictures taken by staff and compared some of the amenities at the Ty Warner Park with the recommendations made by residents over the last several meetings on the Woodbine property to see if we were on the right track. I have to say the company that wrote the park plan back in 2007 and the input from the residents at multiple meetings and open house events is remarkably spot on. People still want pretty much the same things they asked for back in 2007. I have to say all residents have been very patient. Here we are 7 years later, still talking about the same thing, but we are getting closer. I want to thank all of the residents for your patience, and I will continue to support your desire to have parks and recreation in Homer Glen. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Trustee DeVivo. Is there a treasurer's report tonight?
Yes, Mayor, I have the Treasurer's Report of cash and investments at May 31st, 2014. It represents the first month of the new fiscal year. And the general fund had a cash and investment balance of $4,388,390.92. Motor fuel tax fund had a cash and investment balance of $2,226,302.73. The park fund had a balance of $2,404,924.10. The debt service fund had a balance of $535,129.85. And the last fund, the capital projects fund, had a cash and investment balance of $22,353,650.31. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, John. Does anybody have any questions for John? Okay. Is there a clerk's report?
No report, Mr. Mayor.
How about the village attorney?
Yes, the only thing to report tonight concerns the amendments to the animal control ordinance to provide for the regulation of dangerous and vicious dogs. The draft has been completed. It's forwarded Joe Faber for his review and comment, and then once that's done, we'll provide a memo to the board detailing the changes to the ordinance.
Thank you, Mark. Are there any task force chairpersons that would like to say anything? How about any public safety officials? Joe, go right up.
Thank you. This morning, just briefly, I sent out everyone an email about the unique request we received for a music video to be shot here in Homer Glen on Sunday around Venetian Court. Just want anybody has any concerns, just want to give the opportunity. I personally will be out there. Sounds like it's going to be kind of a low key day. All the neighbors signed, they're aware of it, so see how it goes.
Great.
This is a resident who's done professional videos before for the NFL and the and said there might be something interesting. So. Also, Meyer received their approval from the State Fire Marshal to operate their gas station tanks. They got their final inspection with the health department tomorrow, so they'll probably be opening up the convenient gas station store later this week.
Thank you, Joe. Does the village manager have a report?
I do, Mayor. Thank you. Just a couple quick things. First of all, I just want to remind everyone, in case you're able to join us tomorrow, that Jewel Osco's grand reopening is tomorrow, Wednesday, June 25th at 8 in the morning. They made some improvements since taking over, and they wanted to do a grand reopening. So Mayor Daley will be joining them tomorrow, and everyone is welcome right there in front of the store. Joe just mentioned that Myers gas station is going to, they're targeting Thursday or Friday of this week to open. So we, of course, encourage everybody to check that out. The Mayor mentioned earlier about IDOT's new Yellow Dot program for public safety. And we do have all that material over at the front desk of Village Hall, but there are also some back as you leave today on the desk where the agendas were. So if you're interested in exploring that program, there's some information and the dots and whatnot back there. I just want to introduce for the board members, he has been here before, but whenever we have a representative from the Will County Governmental League in attendance, I always like to introduce him. So Hugh O'Hara is here tonight. He's the League's Director of Planning and Programming. Hugh, most of you know Hugh, but he's got a beard now, so I want you to know which one he is. He is really kind of the expert at the League on electric aggregation. We have an item on the agenda tonight about electric aggregation, so if you have any questions, he's the best person to answer them, so we appreciate him being here. And then finally, just before the festival gets going, just want to thank all the volunteers and the staff members who've been involved, and of course the committee of volunteers. And the committee's just done a fantastic job as always, and they'll be doing a lot more good work over the next couple of days. So, Mayor, that's all I have.
Thank you, Pam. Before we go to public comment, we'll go back to recognition because I was waiting for Trustee Sabo, and she's very involved in this. As many of you know, the village has been a member of the Tree City USA for 5 years now. It is my pleasure to announce that we have also been recognized with the Growth Award. The Tree City USA Growth Award is awarded by the Arbor Day Foundation to recognize higher levels of tree care by participating Tree City USA communities. The Growth Award highlights innovative programs and projects and increased commitment of resources for urban forestry. The achievement of this award signifies the village's ongoing commitment to preserve, protect, and enhance our community's quality of life. I'd like to thank the Village Environmental Committee Chair, Trustee Margaret Sabo, and Environmental Committee members, Cynthia Raja, Kathy Kudlow, Bob Moses, Randy Jurish, Trustee Sharon Swees, and Gary White for all their hard work and dedication to safeguarding the village's natural resources. I would also like to thank the Homer Highway Department and Commissioner Mike DeVivo for all the hard work that they do maintaining the village's public tree stock. Now I'd like to ask Trustee Sabo, and I don't believe the mic's here, I'm not sure, to please join me in front of the dais so that I can present you both with the Tree City USA Growth Award. Okay, here you go.
We thank all of your residents for your cooperation, and no one does it alone. The Environment Committee has enjoyed working and supporting the residents on their trees, and the village has been very supportive in having our village arborists check out trees when necessary. So thank you all for your appreciation and support of our village that is known for trees. Thank you.
Okay, then the next portion of this meeting will be public comment. The first speaker would be John Reynolds. John, if you could step up to the mic and give us your name and address for the record.
Hi, everybody. John Reynolds, owner of Sinorama in Bolingbrook, Illinois. And the reason for my being here is there's consideration tonight regarding a change in the village ordinance regarding dimensional signage. And if anybody would like to have any questions about that answered, I'll be happy to do so during the course of the meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, the next speaker would be John Coy. Name and address for the record.
John Coy, 12056 Venetian Way. Lately we've been getting a lot of phone calls, and I was wondering if there's any way any part of the village could help out with trying to, what would I say, call them back to the numbers that they leave. Here's one of them, for instance, which would, to me, is very, very intrusive. happening here is there's more and more of these coming across, our phone lines, and they give you a number to call. And I talked to a couple people that day, and they said, you call that number, you're going to have 10 times the amount you're getting now. Is there anything someday maybe you guys, when you get together, could talk about maybe helping out some of the homeowners with, calls like this? It's crazy that, it's a threatening message that's being left, and they're saying they're from the IRS, but the IRS, I know a while back, they said they don't just call people and threaten them on the phone.
I actually got that phone call myself, and I talked with my accountant, and the IRS does not do business over the phone. They do not do business through emails. If they need to get a hold of you, they know how to get a hold of you. So it is a scam, and it was advertised on, or it was, the story was mentioned on the Channel 2 News not too long ago. So, I mean, that's about all I can say we can really do, because there's a scam artist out there every day, and, so it is a scam.
That's what we thought,
Yeah.
But then I had called a couple of people, but it'd be nice with a little article in the paper reminding people possibly.
That would be the girl to talk to right there.
And Mr. Mayor, if I'm not mistaken, Lisa Madigan also had a report on that not too long ago that they're investigating these type of calls and spam calls. It's a worldwide event.
All right.
Thanks,
thank
John. Okay, the next speaker would be William Sokolis.
Sokolis.
Didn't want to butcher it.
All right. William Sokolis, 13240 167th Street, Omaha. I'm just here to answer any questions. There's a line in there for variance, and I'm here if you need any questions. Tell me what's going on.
Okay, thank you. Then the final speaker would be Glen McGarry.
Okay, I'm Lynn McGarry, 14104 Garibaldi, Orland Park, Homer Glen. I like how Mr. Coy says it. I'm here on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce tonight. The Chamber of Commerce supports the amendment to the sign ordinance regarding dimensional surface signs. The consideration for this change in our ordinance came about for a number of reasons, but one of them is our neighbor right down the way, Total Look Beauty Salon, a business in Homer Glen that I know of for at least 27 years. She chose a very nice sign that fits her budget. It's a kind of a hybrid between a pan sign and a channel letter sign, a new kind of sign. A channel letter sign that would be similar would cost about $500 more. And she can't afford it. Total Look is just one example like this. In addition to appearance, cost has got to be a consideration for our businesses and also for the village board. Approval of dimensional surface signs are a great compromise in an effort for Homer Glen to be more business friendly. It's the opinion of the Chamber that our village needs to show more support for business in Homer Glen by passing this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Okay, that concludes public comment. The next portion of this meeting is there a motion to approve the consent agenda, which includes the following items of business. Number 1, consider for approval ordinance number 14-032, an ordinance declaring surplus property. And 2, consider for approval the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning FY 2015 local contribution request. And 3, consider for approval ordinance number 14-033, an ordinance adopting the prevailing wage standards in the village of Homer Glen, Will County, Illinois. First by Trustee DeVivo. Second by Trustee K. Janis. Is there any questions? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee DeVivo. Aye. Trustee K. Janis.
Aye.
Trustee Sabo. Aye. Trustee Suisse. Aye. Trustee Yukich.
Aye.
Trustee Costa.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. This would be K. This is legislation and action items. This would be K1. Is there a motion to approve an extension of the Will Electric Aggregation Group's intergovernmental agreement for the term of the next contract agreed to with alternative retail electric supplier which shall be for a term period of not to exceed 3 years.
So moved.
First by trustee Yukich, second by trustee Costa. Are there any questions for Hugh as long as he's here? Okay, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Kajianis?
Aye.
Trustee Sabo? Aye. Trustee Suisse? Aye. Trustee Yukich?
Aye.
Trustee Costa?
Aye.
Trustee DeVivo? Aye.
Motion carries. Thanks for coming out, Rob. This would be K2. Is there a motion to approve ordinance number 14-034, an ordinance granting a variance to permit a reduction of the required first floor masonry materials of an accessory structure and a variance to permit an accessory structure to be located behind the front wall of the primary structure of the property commonly known as 13240 West 167th Street, Homer Glen, Illinois.
So moved.
First by, who's that, trustee Sabo? Second by trustee Kajianis. Are there any questions?
Yes, Mayor, I have some questions.
Go right
for
ahead.
Thank you. Hi. It looks like a very nice building, and I was wondering what type of use, what are you using this for?
Toys. It's already got the name Billy Boy's Barn. So snowmobiles, tractors. I have a '70 Chevelle, and just everyday storage. And we need, we don't have to drive garage, so we do need the storage. But and I've taken up with working projects with my daughter and just stuff like that. I mean,
This is 2 stories?
yeah, the lower level will be for like the storage of tractors and stuff, and then I have the upper level I'm going to use for like woodworking projects. I'm in the process of making a bunch of farm tables for her vintage rental business and just hobbies. I mean, hopefully getting close to retirement, and I just we plan on staying there. So
Okay.
it's basically a barn for me, and we're going to make it.
Are you, I know at the Plan Commission you said you were having an office and bathroom and everything like that.
Yeah, I mean, slightly, the office could be classified as a tool lockup, so I can't, well, my daughters can't get in there and steal the tools, but it's really not, I'm not putting a business in there. That was at the Planning Commission. I have a business that's in Romeoville, and I have no, I'm trying to get out of business. I don't want to be a business anymore. So that basically it's just, so I have to run back up to the house.
Are you in construction? Are you doing this yourself?
Yeah. It's actually a kit. It's coming in from Vermont. It's a real barn. I mean, 6x6s are 6x6. The 1x material is literally an inch, so it's really a cool deal.
It looks cool. So I guess you could summarize it. This is for your personal effect.
Oh.
Okay, are there any further questions for this gentleman?
I do.
Go ahead, trustee Sabo.
I have a question for staff. By the way, it's a beautiful barn. It's a lovely barn. I'd like to know the total coverage on the property. On the chart on page 3, you mentioned the proposed plan, but what is the total coverage of the house and the barn or any other accessory structures?
Who's the question directed at?
Well, I believe Aaron.
Right in front of me, I only have the total of the 7.7%. I have to subtract out, and I don't have a calculator in front of me to take out what the barn is. So it would be just a little bit less than that.
It's actually less than what was, I had an architect look into it, what we were allowed.
Okay, well, it's too bad we don't have the number. If, we want to make sure that it meets or and if it exceeds, we have to know that.
It's
footprint is
much,
35 by
yeah.
72.
It's much less than the lot coverage for the whole site is 20%, and everything totals 7.7%. He's allowed to have 3.5% in accessory structures, and he only has 1.6%. So
okay, so the total is
7.7% for the entire lot.
Okay.
Okay, does that answer your question?
And yes, and what is the maximum coverage for?
20%.
Okay.
Okay, are there any further questions? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Sabo?
Aye.
Trustee Suisse?
Aye.
Trustee Yukich?
Aye.
Trustee Pasco?
Aye.
Trustee Gazebo? Aye. Trustee Kate Janice?
Aye.
Motion carries. Congratulations. This would be K3. Is there a motion to approve ordinance number 14-035, a tax amendment to ordinance number 08-048 entitled the Village of Homer Glen zoning ordinance, amending the signage regulations to allow dimensional surface signs?
So moved.
First by trustee Kate Janice. Who was down there? Second by trustee Sweets. Is there any discussion?
Yes.
Go right ahead.
Thank you. I want to pass out a little packet from Frankfurt and another suburb. But I believe our ordinance, as it stands, enhances the physical appearance of this village and what we're looking for, a unique character. It encourages sound practices with a sense of appreciation for the visual environment. There was a mention of the total look signs, and I understand from zoning that pan signs are not included. The wording on the dimensional sign is so vague that in our packet we see 7, 8, 9 different types of signs that could be rendered as a dimensional sign, including what the handout that Aaron just gave us of the Dairy Queen. It is a molded plastic sign, dimensional. The letters are raised, and it's multicolored. And then you look at our dentistry sign. That is pleasing to the eye, but that wording is so vague, it could be interpreted a dozen different ways, because we have 8, 9, 10 different samples of what this ordinance is talking about. But I just want to pass this down as far as Frankfurt. Here, there's little packets of the different, of what they feel that their village does with their sign ordinance to provide a positive economic climate. Yes, a sign like we are after might be a little bit more expensive, but it's an investment.
Oh, really? Okay, Kate. Did you have anything further to say, trustee Sweets?
Well, not at the moment.
Okay, is there any further discussion on this?
What's really interesting, exciting, Frankfurt, and I have some experience over the last, approximately 25 years of business experience in Frankfurt, where it started with late 1970s, going forward into the 2000s. So I find that very interesting. Also, I have very much experience in a lot of other municipalities, and as widespread as you want to take it. So I find that very interesting that you bring up Frankfurt, because if you look at Frankfurt's economic viability and development in that town, it's screaming business friendly. It is, and how they developed from the 1970s going forward is leaps and bounds to where I believe we are at today. I believe this sign ordinance, this definition of sign ordinance, is a very pragmatic, straightforward approach to things to start off with some common sense with it. When you take a look at our village of Homer Glen, we'll see a multitude of signs, even on fences at homes, or in front yards, or even on street corners, advertising various things. But as we go forward in this village, we will always see a differential of different signs. From when I first moved here 30 years ago to today and into the future. So as we step up our approach to things, and as different things develop and techniques develop, I believe that we need to be very forward-thinking, especially when it comes to our local businesses. And we heard a quote today, or a comment today, that it could cost upwards of $500, and I've heard higher numbers than that, more for a sign. $500, I've heard a comment in the past from the SPOR that signage could be better, instead of signage, there's better ways to spend the money. Well, I think we need to leave that up to the local business person, the best way to spend money on promoting their business. This particular business sees this as a very strong, viable promotional tool. As a retailer, they live and die based on the success and recognition of their business. I think this is an attractive sign. I think the Planning Commission did a very fine job reading the minutes, discussing this program, and I would encourage my fellow board members, hopefully, to adopt this text amendment.
I'd like to make a comment, Mayor.
Are you finished, Trustee Kitchen?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Mr.
Trustee Sweets, go right ahead.
No, my concern is also because of dimensional signs can cover many, many different types of molded plastic. And even though you say it is it's a new look, I don't think it's appropriate. And because it's too variable and it's too open to interpretation.
Okay. Is there any further discussion?
I just don't want us to have personal feelings or beliefs and styles. Some call it yellow, some call it amber. I think personal styles and preference and tastes need to stay out of it. I think we need to be realistic. This is a small retail business that wants to stay viable and successful and provide bread and butter for their dinner table.
Okay. Is there any more Trustee Kitchen? Go ahead.
Two things. Has the sign already been ordered for this total look? No.
Well,
hold on.
The second question would be, a few months ago, Rose from Taza came in with a sign for her store when she was going to open up the new cupcake store. That was turned down, and it was actually told to her, it's not in the ordinance, it shouldn't have even been brought before us. So what I don't understand is if staff is doing what they're supposed to be doing and informing these people before they come in what the ordinance is, they should also be told to address it before you start doing any buying, purchasing, looking. I understand people want different looks and different signs, but the problem that you have here is no matter where you go, not just Homer Glen, you go to Orland, you go to Paris, most states, if they have an ordinance in place, that's what they want you to follow. If you aren't going to follow it in the first place, you need to come before it for variance. But if you're going to constantly change something for everyone that wants to come in, because everyone has different ideas, or maybe this side's better than that side, then why have an ordinance?
Well, I think the purpose of the ordinance is to set guidelines, but times change and things change and looks change and products that are available to better advertise your business change. And I think this is just amending an existing ordinance.
But where does it stop?
Well, it never will stop. When you have ordinances, you have to amend them from time to time to fit what's going on in the real world. These people are coming forward with a new look that I don't have any issue with. That I actually like it, and it takes us amending our sign ordinance to accommodate them to be able to do this, and that's what we're doing here. Right. We're not throwing our sign ordinance out the window. We're just amending the sign ordinance. Trustee Costa, I believe you had your hand here.
Yeah, you know what, I agree what was said by I think all the trustees in some fashion at some point, but I think we're seeing too is as you know we're trying to grow our community business-wise. If you look at many of the signs that are using similar to this, if you want to call them the bubble signs, they're franchise businesses. So you take a Dairy Queen or a Hardee's or with another fast food, anybody that wants to come into town, if their business sign, their motto, if their signature sign is this type of sign, are we going to tell them no, they can't have it? They would have to come for a variance if we don't allow this. Times do change, technology changes. If we allow, I'm going to just use the word Hardee's to have their bubble sign, why can't we allow Smith's Cookies to have theirs? So I think by amending this is probably the best thing to do. I do like, though, I believe it was in another community or some other communities where they have sign subcommittees. I'm sorry, I missed what that's all about. I don't know if we want to add another layer to it or not, but I think what we have here we may have to massage it or maybe modify it a little bit if we see something happening, but I think this would be, right now, this would work for the community.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Because everybody should have their own opinion on it. Trustee Sabo, go ahead.
Frankfurt was mentioned, and I happened to have an opportunity to talk to the village of the mayor of Frankfurt, and he said that if there's an applicant coming, that they follow their ordinance. They follow their ordinance. They try to, and they work with the ordinance. An applicant doesn't come and which is happening here, and then has an idea that causes our ordinance to change. And so what happens here is it goes from committee to committee, and it clogs the agendas, and we're spending time, and it really isn't fair to the committees, the community, or the business community. I think it's confusing them. They see something, they would like it. How about that business that spent the money to follow the present sign ordinance? And then he finds out that somebody can do that, and now he spent his money and he wants to do that. And signs define a business. If a sign is not inviting, people don't feel that they want to go in. And if a sign is inviting, they say, oh, gee, what's inside? I'd like to go in. Channel signs have that creativity. I compared Glen to another town, and went through that one and went through another one. And when you have a mix of different signage, there is no direction. There is no cohesiveness. It's whatever happens, happens. And the people that spent time on this ordinance a while ago really put thought into it. I know we've changed it to accommodate businesses, but when somebody comes and has an idea, and and then all of a sudden it works through the committee because of the committees, and it comes to the board, I just believe it causes an unfair standard. It's not fair to all. It's like somebody's going to have it more red or more gaudy, or somebody's going to say they want something different next time. But a community is respected where there are rules that are in place, and that a business knows what to expect when they come. These signs may look cute, but in a way that it's kind of a comic relief on some of them, because it's not they're just not sophisticated, and at night what happens, they don't show up well. I think sometimes when we're business friendly, we cause the opposite to happen. We cause confusion, and then it's for example, it's upsetting to Total Look. Total Look in the first place should have just followed the sign ordinance. Following the sign ordinance, her sign would be up by now. And the next person that comes in is going to have an idea. We're going to be changing it for them. These plastic signs are not a new idea. They're formed. They don't complement the building, and they certainly don't complement what is inside. And we seem to be going in any direction. Anything seems to happen here. Whatever any applicant wants, we're going to bend over. And that's not bend over for them, and make it happen. These are not aesthetically pleasing. I know there's an investment in signage, but the investment in signage is for a good cause. And I just believe we should stick to the present ordinance, and not when something new comes along, say, okay, well, it's new, let's try that. I'd like to see a positive economic climate, a reasonable economic situation where everybody knows what to expect.
No.
And in this case now, we've changed the sign ordinance for a good reason the last time, to have signage on sides of buildings and so forth, so that those at corners could take advantage of this. But these signs are unpredictable in what we would get. And I agree with Trustee Swees that the definition is not clear enough. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Everybody's going to have their own opinion, okay? You can hear the different opinions here, so it's a democracy. So, Trustee DeVivo, go right ahead.
Just a quick comment. I think they look good. I think they are creative, and we really should be open to change. It's an amendment. We didn't rewrite the whole ordinance, so I think it's appropriate, and I think it looks good.
And one other thing to just sort of dovetail on that. This isn't for one individual. This is changing the sign ordinance that other businesses come in. This isn't just for Total Look. Total Look brought a concept to us that we're reviewing, and of course, everybody has their own opinion, and they're entitled to it. So, I mean, I don't think we really need to discuss this, just vote on it. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Can I ask
Sure.
one question? Since Mr. Reynolds is here, can he come up to, I would like him to explain, you're the sign person, can you look at this Dairy King sign and tell us what that is by the interpretation? What type of sign is that? What do you consider that?
Just by looking at the photo, I would say that is a bubble cut or contour cut, flex cut type design sign.
Okay. See, here's where the confusion lies with interpretation. That's a pan sign according to what zoning gave us. It's a dimensional pan sign. Our sign person says it's bubble cut. This is where the way the wording is, it's open to all type of interpretations.
Okay, thank you. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Swees?
No.
Trustee Yukich?
Aye.
Trustee Costa?
Aye.
Trustee DeVivo? Aye. Trustee Tejanis?
Aye.
Trustee Sabo?
No.
Motion carries. Okay, this would be K4. Is there a motion to authorize a fourth adult mosquito control spraying in the amount of $8,855 for 2014?
So moved.
First by Trustee Costa.
Second.
Second by Trustee Swees. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, just a quick comment. So all we need to do is give Clark about a week's notice. So staff just was looking for the flexibility to be able to do this later in the season. We may not have to if it turns dry. Okay?
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, any further discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Yukich?
Aye.
Trustee Costa?
Aye.
Trustee DeVivo?
Aye.
Trustee Tejanis?
Aye.
Trustee Sabo? Aye. Trustee Swees?
Aye.
Motion carries. This would be K5. Is there a motion to approve the attached proclamation designating Accessibility Awareness Week from July 20th through July 26th, 2014 in the Village of Homer Glen?
So moved.
First by Trustee Costa.
Second.
Second by Trustee Yukich. Is there any discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Costa?
Aye.
Trustee DeVivo? Aye. Trustee Tejanis?
Aye.
Trustee Sabo? Aye. Trustee Swees? Aye. Trustee Yukich?
Aye.
Motion carries. This would be, let's see here, 6, K6. Is there a motion to approve ordinance number 14-036, an ordinance amending section 1 of Exhibit A of ordinance number 10-001, entitled an ordinance establishing rules of conduct of the village board meetings in the Village of Homer Glen, Will County, Illinois. It is understood that with the approval of the attached ordinance, the village board will be holding their regular meetings on the second and fourth Wednesday of every month, beginning September 1st, 2014. It is understood that the village board will not meet on Wednesday, November 26th, the day before Thanksgiving, and Wednesday, December 24th, Christmas Eve, but will instead hold a special meeting of the village board on Tuesday, November 25th and Tuesday, December 23rd.
So moved.
First by trustee Costa.
Second.
Second by trustee Yukich. Is there any discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee DeVivo?
Aye.
Trustee Janis?
Aye.
Trustee Sabo? Aye. Trustee Suisse?
Aye.
Trustee Yukich?
Aye.
Trustee Costa?
Aye.
Motion carries. This would be case 7. Is there a motion to approve the proposal from H.R. Green for engineering services related to the development of a park in the Goodings Grove subdivision for a not to exceed amount of $40,684? This includes $27,734 for the base proposal, in addition to $2,100 for alternate number 1, electrical engineering, design, $4,350 for alternate number 2, engineering services, street extension, and $6,500 for alternate number 3, construction observation. It should be noted that the OSLID grant award to the Village of Homer Glen included $45,130.85 for architectural and engineering design fees.
So moved.
First by trustee DeVivo,
Second.
second by trustee Costa. Is there any discussion?
Yes, Mayor, I have a question.
Go right ahead.
I was just curious, the site development plan is H.R. Green, are those the ones that developed the site development plans?
There is a preliminary plan that went with the grant, and then what has to happen is we have to take that preliminary plan and turn it into a final plan, and that's what the engineering firm will have us do. Just like they did, the exact same thing they did with Erin Hills. We worked with them on Erin Hills. The committee, Marcia, if I could, the committee felt that they did such a good job on Erin Hills that they wanted to recommend sticking with them for the subdivision.
Okay, does that answer your question, trustee?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Janis?
Aye.
Trustee Sabo? Aye. Trustee Suisse?
Aye.
Trustee Yukich?
Aye.
Trustee Costa?
Aye.
Trustee DeVivo? Aye.
Motion carries. This would be K8. Is there a motion to direct staff to include the completion of the final roadway lift on unfinished roads in the Cypress Point, Glenview Walk, and Windsor Court subdivisions as part of the 2014 roadway paving program for a not to exceed amount of $350,000. It is understood that the village will reimburse the Homer Township Highway Department for this work from the original $500,000 budgeted for subdivision improvements in non-LOC subdivisions, and that after deducting $75,000 for work previously approved by the village board in the Erin Hills Unit D subdivision, $75,000 would remain in the non-LOC subdivision improvement line item 7000-85-630 for future work. So, first by trustee Janis, second by trustee Yukich. Is there any discussion? Mike DeVivo's here if you have any questions for him. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Sabo? Aye. Trustee Suisse?
Aye.
Trustee Yukich?
Aye.
Trustee Costa?
Aye.
Trustee DeVivo? Aye. Trustee Janis?
Aye.
Motion carries. I'm very happy about that. That's putting a page behind us that we've been trying to figure out for quite some time, and finally budgeted for it, and we're knocking that one off our plate. So congratulations to everybody. Okay, the next part of this meeting is workshop item. This evening we have Devin Levine and Nick Davis of Hazel Levine here to present the preliminary draft of the 159th Street Corridor Plan and Study. Gentlemen, help yourself.
Mayor, if I could, before they begin, just a real quick item. So as you're hearing the presentation tonight, if you recall from the last board meeting, I asked you just to think about and be able to give me some feedback tonight. So after, as you're hearing the presentation, you can be thinking about this, and then after the presentation, you can give us feedback. What we need to know is whether or not you want a public hearing at the Plan Commission level, or if you would prefer to have a public hearing at the village board level regarding the plan. That's just as simple as that. That's all I need to know. So with that, Mayor,
thank you. Go right ahead, guys.
All right, thanks. My name is Nick Davis. I'm a senior associate at Hazel Levine, and this is Devin Levine from Hazel Levine. So, as Cameron just said, we're really going to present the plan that we had presented a few months back. There's been some changes based on staff comments, public comments, some of the comments from the board. What I'm going to do is I'm going to run through pretty quickly, and then if we want to kind of go back, if there's any specific questions, we're going to hit the major points of the plan. So this is just a table of contents, kind of outlines all the project or all the different chapters, but I'm going to get into the introduction, which kind of better explains all of this. So this part of the plan just kind of sets up the tone of the document, what the purpose is, what the project overview was, what the corridor study planning process is trying to accomplish. It also outlines the 8 sub-chapters that are part of the plan, which includes the introduction to the market conditions of the corridor, which was done as part of the assessment, and then some updates to it as new things came online or new developments were considered. There's a land use plan chapter, design and development guidelines chapter, streetscape and beautification plan, access and transportation plan, infrastructure and utilities plan, and an economic development implementations plan. So a lot of this is just existing conditions, the planning context, the corridor setting, regional setting, things like that. So I won't dwell on this. Oh, come on. Maybe I will dwell on this. So the regional, there we go. We did a lot of community outreach. There was a steering committee meeting that we had hosted. So this outlines all the different public outreach processes that we had. So steering committee meeting, a community workshop, which was held here. There were key person interviews. We did an exhaustive kind of examination of all the existing plans and studies that were relative to the 159th Street corridor. Sorry, the clicker is very finicky. I apologize. The existing land use and boundaries agreement. So this is just the existing land use in the ground. It also identifies, some of the boundary agreements that have been made with Lockport, which is to the west, as you can see. This is the market conditions corridor. This is a pretty lengthy market conditions analysis, and there's also some recommendations as part of this, and also in the last chapter. This was something that I think we talked to in length at the last meeting. It just talks about the employment and business, the retail market, the various, sorry, that's hard to read, the various kind of gap analysis, all the different kind of uses that are going to be impacted along the corridor. Gives an analysis of lodging and residential mixed use within the region. There's an office in the industry market, so this identifies all the different office and industry markets in the area, and then a preliminary market conclusion, which again, this is all from the existing conditions report. So getting into the plan recommendations, the corridor is really divided into 3 sub-areas or 3 character areas. There's the west end, the central end, and the east end. And the functional sub-areas really help to kind of dictate how the land use was laid out, how some of the recommendations for access and circulation was laid out, and then just various other recommendations kind of are all funneled through these three character areas. The land use designation plan identifies, I'm going to pull this up because it might be tough to read. It identifies several different land use designations that are applicable to the corridor, a little bit more detail than what was in the comprehensive plan, which was kind of the basis for identifying the need for a corridor plan. So those uses include single-family attached single-family, multifamily residential. As part of the commercial, that identifies regional commercial and local commercial. There's also institutional, light industrial, and just traditional industrial, office, parks and open space, and utilities. And just throughout the corridor, these uses are identified, what they are, what they should be like over the next 20 to 30 years. And then we also talk about agricultural uses and how over time that'll be either adapted into new uses, redeveloped, or maintained for just future investment. And then one of the important parts of the plan is flexibility and remaining flexible. Even though as part of the land use plan we identify specifically where certain uses should go, you really want to be able to respond to potential developments that could come into the corridor. It's not always cut and dry on what is exactly needed in the next 15, 20, 30 years. These are just some of the redevelopment sites which are identified on the land use plan, and I think there ends up being about 20 or 30 of these, and it's just specific areas where the types of redevelopment were considered. They should be something like this or they should be like that. And it is, every lot on this corridor is a potential redevelopment site, but these are just specific areas where redevelopment should be considered. And as something comes online, this is just kind of a guideline for what those development opportunities could be. So specific to that, there were 4 or 5 redevelopment sites that were identified for the corridor, and these plans show alternatives for what those specific areas could be. This one shows potentially an alternative one, a hotel with a theater, commercial retail. Let's see if this works. So this would be a hotel, commercial, theater. Over here could be offices, a restaurant or something like that as you're coming off of. So right here is the highway. You're coming off the highway. This is the interchange. You're coming down to 159th Street. 159 in Gallery. Oh, this is Gallery. And then option 2 just shows still an office, but just a different kind of hotel and office configuration. Still retail along the corridor. And these are just alternatives. They're not meant to be what gets built tomorrow, but just to kind of give an idea, both showing kind of the scale of the sites, but also the types of developments that you can anticipate seeing in these areas based on the land use plan and design guidelines. Site D, which is a little further to the east, just off 159th Street. It shows the 2 alternatives here are regional commercial. There's some offices shown off to the side, off to the west end of the parcel, and then again, retail along the corridor that would be kind of within character of the design guidelines and the land use plan recommendations. And then just a different kind of configuration. So similar uses, different configurations, just to show what the potentials are for the site. Site D shows at 159th Street, further west and or further east. I wish I could show these on the overall, but just another configuration. This is actually the pipeline cutting through, but we're still west of Bell Road. Yeah, 159th and Cedar, I apologize. And this just shows a mix of kind of landscape buffer in the back, townhomes and senior housing to the north, big box commercial to the corridor, fronting the corridor, and then just cluster development to the north and alternative 2, just showing kind of a variation in residential types. And then Site S is just west of, Site S is just west of Bell Road off 159th Street. And so right here is the intersection of Bell and 159th, just showing a commercial lifestyle center up at the frontage of the road. And then to the rear would be cluster single family development, a nice park in the center. And again, this is just one alternative for something that could happen at that intersection, just kind of showing the scale of the types of projects. So I won't go into great lengths with this, but the design and development guidelines outline the types of development that you could see, what they should look like. They're just recommendations. A lot of times they defer to the zoning code, both the sign, on-site improvements, on-site design standards, and then just generally the types of uses that could happen. But they were developed for several types of uses, including the commercial, residential, even if there's light industrial as that comes in. It talks about lighting and building materials, parking lots, what they should look like, site landscaping, and it just gives you kind of a flavor for what Homer Glen is anticipating to see, in the future, and what they would like, what the character should be. Also talks about business signage, which obviously is a big discussion here tonight. Public improvements, sidewalks and trails, pedestrian amenities, things like gateways and signage, benches and seating areas, things like that. So the design guidelines are pretty extensive in terms of what they're trying to set as a tone for the corridor. So if there's any questions, we can come back to those later. Chapter 5 sets up the streetscape and beautification plan. This section talks about pedestrian scale elements, things like we just talked about. Key intersection improvements, what those could look like, what the pedestrian key intersection enhancements should be, crosswalks, key plazas, lighting standards, trash receptacles, benches, all kind of recommendations on what the community should anticipate or what the community should expect for the area. The streetscape and beautification plan identifies specific improvements like proposed gateways, at the key intersections of the site or of the community, wayfinding and informational signing, key intersection improvements, streetscape enhancements, billboard relocation or removal, things like preserving the existing tree canopy, which is something that was very important to the community. We wanted to make sure that we were able to incorporate that into the beautification framework. Addressing the overhead utilities and what can be done with the overhead utilities to kind of lessen the visible, or the visible clustering or kind of the cluttering of the view shed. Trying to develop a continuous sidewalk along the entire corridor, which is a part of the improvements that are happening. and then a multi-use hero trail on the other side of the south side of the road, or north side of the road. This section also identifies some of the potential screening opportunities that could happen for the parking lots. You know, potentially what could happen in the median if the village, you know, wanted to take that on, if they wanted to landscape it, you know, put street trees in or planting beds. It also shows what some of the improvements should be along the entrances of private properties. Talks about streetscaping, so the parkway landscaping, generally just landscaping for all on-site improvements, so on the private side as well. And then general maintenance, upkeep, and the beautification. Those are significant, I guess, recommendations when you start thinking about all these different expensive improvements that are being talked about. How are they going to be maintained? You know, what are the steps to ensuring that over time they maintain or they get better as, you know, the landscape or the plant material matures. So the access and transportation plan, a big part of this plan was coordinating with the IDOT improvements that are happening for the corridor. A lot of that had to do with the medians, as well as just generally how the site, or how each private property site is going to be impacted, you know, how site circulation and traffic is going to begin or how it's going to flow. There was also planning with the Will County improvements, and there were crash rates that we considered when we started, you know, talking about which curb cuts should be consolidated, or, you know, which sites should consider cross-access, things like that. Talking about the improved right-of-way, you know, how that's going to change the traffic flow over time for the entire corridor, you know, what those impacts are. The roadway access points start to talk about, you know, you have a lot of curb cuts currently right now, and over time those are going to start to become less and less with major, you know, intersections or major access points into larger developments. You know, we talk about the median widening, which is obviously an important issue to consider when you start thinking about the new kinds of developments that you can anticipate along the corridor. Some of the recommendations that we get specific about are primary site access, limiting the amount of access points into a site, you know, the types of internal roadways that could occur. You know, you could establish a frontage road, a rear access road, you could promote cross-access. You can, you know, talk about all these different alternatives that lessen the amount of traffic that can go, you know, from each site having their own drive to maybe one or two sites sharing an access point significantly over time. That reduces the amount of impacts or crashing issues or potential crashes on a corridor. So this is just some of those specific recommendations, how they play out. Another important thing to consider with all the improvements that are happening along the corridor are stormwater management techniques. You know, things like bioswales, vegetated covers, infiltration techniques, pervious materials. These are all ways to ensure that the stormwater or the rainwater that's hitting the site is infiltrated on that site, as opposed to being pushed off into retention facilities or used for, you know, if it needed to be used for sewer and capture, but that wouldn't be the case if you're able to use these types of materials. We talk about public transit, what those improvements could be. You know, how can you encourage more public transit ridership along the corridor? Maybe you show kind of a new bus shelter. You invite people in. Right now, it's just a couple of signs that are along there, like bus shelter signs or bus signs. And then just talking about pedestrian mobility. Right now, it's not a very pedestrian mobile-friendly street, but as some of the improvements are made and there's a bike trail or multi-use trail and a sidewalk included, you'll start to see a lot more pedestrians along the corridor. And that just means that there's types of improvements that you want to make sure are being included in the private development sites that come along, but also on the public side. A lot of this. And then we just talk about the future development improvements and what those impacts will be. And then this just identifies things like you know, all the signalized full access intersections, which are in red, the full access intersection, expressway interchanges. It talks about the roadway functional classification, potential street connections, which you can kind of see here. You know, logical areas where there should be future connections made for different roadways that are proposed, be it through new developments or new commercial sites. The infrastructure and utilities plan just identifies different kinds of utility hookups or, you know, future improvements that need to be made to really make this corridor commercially viable, but also viable for future, just even if it's residential development, office development. You know, what's it going to take to bring these I guess users in? When we talk about electricity, you know, Comcast and AT&T, what the recommendations are, potentially varying the existing overhead utilities, which is a very costly endeavor, but it is something that if if you can consider it, or as future developments come in and they want to, do it as part of their process, it is a great way to change the look of the corridor, but there's obviously an upfront cost that's pretty substantial. Gas and oil transmission, so we just talked about NITOR, pipelines, Illinois America, how they're being utilized on the sites, where they're needed, where future hookups are needed, stuff like that. And then sanitary waste collection and treatment, just talking about extending the sanitary waste lines to key sites. They could even service catalyst sites, which is actually what those original plans were that we showed the alternatives for. Those are like catalyst sites. When you start to see those develop, it'll kind of help trigger the rest of the development along the corridor. And then stormwater management, which is, again, a really important issue along this corridor just because of the amount of water that, obviously we're all seeing, but how it's being managed, making sure that it's not just running off into residential neighborhoods. There's some areas that we specifically address this as an issue because it was brought to us during the public outreach process that there was flooding concerns here. By having more development and more impervious surface, those issues will just be, exaggerated. We provide recommendations. And the last section just identifies economic development and implementation strategies. So this helps with the administrative actions, regulatory control, the regulatory actions, things that you can do based on the recommendations in this plan for either modifying your ordinances, modifying your codes, but also steps you can take to reach out to the local businesses, the local the community, and just make sure that you're engaging them and that this plan is being utilized to the full extent. It also talks about the corridor zoning. Specific things like the disconnection between some of the plans and the uses with the zoning. It talks about the sign code, where improvements can be made, or how it can just be best utilized based on the recommendations that are coming out of the design guidelines, but also the types of uses that you want to see. We show the current zoning based on the land use plan, just kind of as a reference. And then we just identify specific issues: billboards, directional signage, outdoor lighting. You have a lighting ordinance that very few other communities have, and it's something we're very proud of. And that the types of developments that happen here are aligned with that lighting ordinance and the sign lines and things like that. And then capital improvement plan, we talk about transportation and circulation, streetscape beautification, utilities, just talking about burying the utilities or public signage improvements, things like that. And then just the steps that would need to happen if there needed to be an update to either this plan or other plans, how this plan is being utilized, what the purpose of it was, and then specific strategies, incentives, and funding sources that can be applied along the corridor, including TIF, SSA, and you don't have to use all of these. These are just kind of a toolkit for you to utilize over time as specific issues come up, or funding is something that you're looking for. These are the types of opportunities that are out there. So there's business development districts, community development corporations. Water and sewer funding opportunities include public works and development facility programs, drinking water, state revolving funds. So there's a lot. I won't read them all. But there's a lot of advantages that you can get along the corridor to make sure that you're bringing in the investments that you're looking for, encouraging the kind of development that you want to see. And then the last piece of it, I'm going to jump ahead a little bit, is the major action item matrix. It's essentially a summary of all of the different recommendations that are provided throughout the plan, and they're broken out by essentially the chapter. So this is just the development matrix. But the next page starts to show, so based on land use and development plan, there's specific recommendations, who's responsible, what the priorities are. They're listed by priority, and they're for each one. And that essentially becomes a checklist of what you're trying to accomplish to complete the goals that are set forth in this plan. And with that, I think we'll open it up to questions. I know I kind of went through that really quick. I apologize.
You didn't go through it quick. I'll tell you that.
Right. I felt quick.
You said you were.
I'm sorry. I lied.
Does somebody want to grab the lights? Sure. Nice presentation, as these gentlemen stated. This is just a guide. Gives you a lot of good ideas for the corridor. One thing that is very obvious that once you get beyond the entitlements that we have on 159th Street, none of this can happen without sewer and water out there. I've had discussions with Trustee Costa a bit about the getting on to water, working with a firm to get water out to the unincorporated area. We have the sewer side of it taken care of. We've made an agreement with the county quite a number of years ago, actually. But the water side really hasn't been addressed yet. So we do know where the water line would go, but we really do have to get a firm in and start talking about the actual plans and where, what it would cost, what time frame it would be on, and so we really need to get busy on that. And with that, nice presentation, guys. Thanks for the study. And if anybody has any questions for them, feel free.
I have a comment.
Trustee Swift, go ahead.
Transiting this corridor between Orland and Homer Glen, I don't see where you were showing like a difference. I mean, some of the concepts, I guess maybe we'll have to come up with that. Because I mean, it looks like, most of it looks like just an extension of LaGrange Road.
No. Oh, in terms of the types of developments that you're seeing?
Right.
Those were, and I understand what you're saying, those were purely really for conceptual, I guess, review or thought. It's not necessarily the types of developments that you see in, as you start to apply the design guidelines or the land use plan that's really set in place. You can see a variety of types of configurations. Those were really to help with the scale of the site. Some of the sites are so large that I think you'd be surprised at how much, different types of developments that you could see in them. I mean, a movie theater looks small, so I think it was really just to show a sense of scale, and then just one type of development that you could see. But obviously, those plans will come in front of the Plan Commission.
Right, because I would think something like a unique tourist attraction that we have people coming in from Chicago to the garden patch for all their events and picking vegetables and fruits. I would think I would want to see that concept stay on the plan for a while. I mean, it's plowed under with concrete and housing, But I mean, that's things we have.
You're absolutely right. I mean, and there's parts of the plan that where we address that where, by no means will tomorrow this be a commercial corridor, 100% commercial corridor. And in the meantime, how do you address that? How do you work with those problems, or how do you work with those assets? Because to many people, those are assets, and yeah, you don't want to see them go away. As future development occurs, they might align, and it might one might help the other. And so yeah, you certainly don't want to just see all of these concepts built tomorrow. It was really just to show potentially what could happen based on the recommendations of the plan, not necessarily this should happen or will happen.
So you're proposing this to us, this is not a blueprint, this is just
your
your concepts of what
just
could
to kind of
happen.
show, it's to show a sense of what could happen there. And this could happen. I mean, this is, someone could come along, like someone that owns a property, it's kind of to spur investment or to spur interest in the area. Like, these are the types of things Homer Glen would like to see in this community, or in this area along 159th Street.
And this is as a result of public input.
Sure.
This is
right. This is not
them
this is
putting
not
this
our
plan
plan.
together.
Right.
This was after how many public meetings and presentations in front of the staff and what have you. So
right, and I think that Mayor make a great point. This is certainly not our plan for the corridor. And I think what Nick is saying is the existing land uses that are there now, permitted under the current zoning, aren't getting sort of ushered out. And, but as the corridor undergoes the widening, traffic counts will go up, the ability to live on 159th Street is going to suffer. So where you have single-family homes that currently have driveways on 159th Street, they're going to sort of feel the pressure to find it maybe a quieter place to live in. So as these properties are for sale, and there's a lot of for sale signs you see along the corridor now, this provides you with a foundation for decision making. As a development proposal comes before you, you can sort of say, hey, we thought about what we wanted for this corridor. We asked our residents. We had several workshops with our community. We heard input. We did a visual preference survey to get the community's appetite for the different types of development they'd like to see, and this is what they told us, and this is how we like to see the corridor develop. So you're not reacting to new development like it's the first time you've heard about it. You thought about it, and you'll be in a better position to say, we thought about what we wanted on the blue side, and this is what we'd like to see here, and it's not what you're proposing. And so
it's just guidelines. It's guidelines. It's showing you the options, the opportunities, and what experience these gentlemen had at designing the corridors. So, I mean, ultimately, you're going to approve different projects, and you're not going to approve certain projects. But this is just a guideline for this whole thing. Does anybody have any other questions for this gentleman?
Just
Trustee Padilla?
a quick question. You made a comment in here about the zoning and that it may be preferable to approach some of these properties and say rezone them because it's all over the place. Would there be an advantage to that, or do you think it would be an advantage to the property owner, actually? Or?
Some developers may perceive coming before you to request a rezoning to be an impediment. And so if the property is already zoned in accordance with the plan, then it's sort of one less hurdle for a developer to have to go through. So it's not well, the plan says this is commercial, but it's currently agriculture. Boy, I'm not going to go to the village hall and fight that fight. And so to make it sort of easier for the development community and to sort of further express the desire to see change within the corridor, especially at some of these key sites, if you can do get the zoning in line with the plan, it's sort of one less hurdle. It makes it that much more enticing.
Quite a few of these sites too, Trustee DeVivo, are not annexed into the village at this point. So as they come forward and they want to annex, they'll be coming forward with plans, and you'll get a better opportunity to see what's in their head as far as what they'd like to do with the property. So, any further questions for these gentlemen? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, go ahead.
When we reviewed the plan, when we reviewed this plan before, and there was input from the trustees, is that incorporated in this new one?
Yes.
Well, I'd like to know where that is. I mean, I'd like to know where that is.
I suppose like a specific comment or a specific section?
Pardon me?
Like a specific comment or a specific section?
I mean, it's throughout the document. We received feedback from all of you, and I guess we were in a position to sort of, some of you had contradicting comments, and so we couldn't address both of you. So we sort of went with what we thought were best practices in terms of our profession and what we heard from the community. We tried to accommodate, I'd say, as many of the comments we heard. I know there were some comments where we had to request to Photoshop out non-compliant streetlights that currently exist in the corridor. And these are photographs of existing conditions, and to us it wasn't within our, we had no money within our budget to sort of change reality. And so there were photos I know within this corridor that had some non-compliant streetlights, and there was a request for us to sort of take them down to make them the dark sky compliant. There were photographs of streetlights that existed in the corridor, so there were changes like that that we just couldn't make within our project budget, and we didn't feel like we had the specific direction to change all of those. So I think we tried to do our best in accommodating all the feedback we received from the village board. Some of the comments were competing, some were just beyond our scope.
So you're saying that you did change some examples to the examples of the lighting ordinance where they're full cutoff, or you didn't?
We did. I mean, several of the photos were changed to accommodate. That's one of the comments we're talking about. We changed quite a few of the photos to show full cutoff lights, or try to crop them as best we could so you're not seeing them.
Does that answer your question, Trustee Sale?
Well, there's so much in here that is information to really absorb that it takes a great deal of study. I mean, it's just a presentation like this is. I think we each of the trustees need to look a little deeper in here. One of my questions is, we have a comprehensive land use plan that exists today. So did you look at that plan and try to take information from that to be included in this one?
Yeah, so on page, I can't read this.
The answer is yes, and I was actually
with the microphone, please.
The answer is yes, and I was with the firm Turco Pettigrew Allen Payne and helped prepare the village's comprehensive plan back in 2001, 2002.
Yeah.
So I'm very familiar with the village's comprehensive plan, and throughout here, I know on page 18 we contrast the 2005 land use plan. Pardon me?
Going to page 18. Okay.
So we highlight how the 2005 recommendations differ from the land use plan that we're presenting on page 18, again based on the change in role of the corridor. Certainly when we prepared the comprehensive plan back in the early 2000s, the widening of 159th Street hasn't been designated. There was the concept of a town center on 143rd. So there were some things that have happened, and this is to the mayor's point, you need to sort of remain flexible in some of these things, and it's just a general guide. On page 7, you can see we reviewed the comprehensive plan, the Parks and Recreation Master Plan, another document I helped prepare for the village back in 2008, the 159th Street Corridor Plan from 2010, which was prepared by HNTV Corporation, went from Homer Glen all the way east to where 159th Street intersects with I-57. And then the IDOT's SRA feasibility study prepared in 1995 and updated in 2012. So we looked at every planning document we can get our hands on, and the relevant recommendations carried forward. The things that were echoed once again in the outreach, the desire to sort of keep this corridor unique, make it a showpiece for the village of Homer Glen, something that the residents can be proud of, was something we heard. I know we heard that back in 2001 preparing the comprehensive plan. We heard it again in the outreach for this, and so the design guidelines reflect high-quality development along 159th Street that would convey a high-quality community. We look at the master plan, the transportation master plan from March of 2000. And then there were also some other studies done by Law Court, did an I-355 corridor study. Our firm helped them prepare that back in 2008. There's some overlap there, planning area on the south side of 159th Street. Is immediately across the street to the yours to the north, so where we could align land use compatibilities for what Law Court was planning with what the village was planning. We identified those, as well as the CMAPs Go to 2040, then the Green Vision for the Homer Glen community, another document we looked at.
What I'd recommend is that the trustees take this document back and look it over, and can you ask for a decision to bring it back to this board for the plan?
This is what happens by the agreement that we signed with them. That's why I distributed it a couple weeks ago, so everybody can look at it. This is your meeting on this preliminary draft, and then what comes forward is a final draft at a public hearing, either before the village board, which actually I would recommend, or the planning commission. And then after that public hearing, which let's say that public hearing was in August, so that people had a whole month we could promote it and tell people to go look at it and stuff. And then it would come back after that public hearing for the village board to consider approval in September.
Okay. So my recommendation would be to take this, and if you have additional comments, if you go through this very voluminous document here, study, do you want the recommendations sent to you?
Well, I was hoping the discussion of recommendations would happen tonight. I mean, we've already gotten feedback from board members about the plan. This is a final, so we're looking. We need to distribute a final plan to the public before the public hearing. They have to see a document that you're considering approval.
Okay.
So now that doesn't mean that you can't provide additional feedback. They'll take additional feedback at all points, but it's something that has to become a final draft. So the public, it's not a changing document. The public knows that that's the one you're considering.
Okay. Then, does anybody see anything? We've had this for a couple of weeks. Does anybody see anything that they believe should be added to this document before it comes forward to this board?
Well, I'd like to make a comment on this. We've had this for 2 weeks. There's a lot of other things that have gone on during that period of time. I agree with the mayor that the trustees should really delve into this and make comments, and should hand them in rather than us making a decision here tonight or saying that we haven't really we haven't really had the input here this evening. And I believe that it's really necessary. I'm very, very interested in what's happening or what is recommended along 159th Street for some recommended changes. I feel that there still is time to do this. I feel that, this plan is very, very important. And 2 weeks is not enough time to have to go through this. I really would like to extend the time and give the trustees an opportunity to hand in their comments.
Okay, perfect. That's what we'll do then. Dan, they're going to...
I'll work out a schedule.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're going to look it over more and get any questions or recommendations or comments back to you.
Very good. Very good.
You can work with Hazel and Lee.
Very good. So then that final question, and I just threw in my recommendation at the very end, which was that the public hearing actually happen before the board. If you're comfortable with that, ultimately, I'd like some direction on that tonight.
I have no, does anybody have any problems with bringing it to the board? Instead of planning commission?
Yeah, if you're coming, I would prefer it coming to the board, but not until the fall. There's so many things going on in the summer.
It'll probably happen in September now. It'll take a little bit more time, yeah. The reason that I am suggesting that we get to a final draft is because when it's hard to promote it as a finished document until we get to a final draft, so then the public would look at it and then they'd have to look at it again. Do you see what I'm saying? So that's the only reason. I'm not saying that we have to rush into it, but at some point we need a final so we can really promote it, send out letters and stuff like that.
Okay, so review it and send your comments to the village manager. He'll be in contact with these guys with the comments that he receives, and we'll move forward with it. It sounds like maybe sometime in September. Okay, thank you guys. Thank you. All right, before we move on to next, a couple items in the workshop, we do have a couple items of new business, but before we get there, we have representatives here from the Will Grundy Center for Independent Living. I want to take a photo with them, seeing that it's Accessibility Awareness Week. So, if you guys want me to come over there, or you want to come up here? Well, we can go to the sign Okay. Thank you guys for coming out. Before we get to new business, is there any old business? Okay. Let's see here. There were a few trustees that asked, it was Trustee Sabo, Swees, and Yukich asked for the next two items to be added to the meeting's agenda under new business. Discussion regarding request to hire a firm to perform an environmental assessment of the Woodbine property. That was the first one, so we'll do them as two separate ones as Trustee Swees requested at the beginning of the meeting. As far as an environmental assessment goes for a Woodbine property, I think that can be easily added to the RFQ that we go out to for the park side of this building. Where we're at park side of the property, where we're at right now is we've gone through the RFQ process for the building. We awarded the architect. We selected an architect, I should say. The village manager is working on a contract for the architectural firm, and this same process will take place on the park side of the property, the 100 acres outside the building. As far as having an environmental, let's see here, environmental assessment, I think that can just be added to the RFQ if everybody's satisfied with that.
I'm not understanding what you really mean, added to the RFQ.
Well, when you go out for an RFQ, you're looking for qualifications, and you're stating that part of the qualifications have to be that they know how to do an environmental study.
I mean, say you're adding to what?
Adding to the qualifications necessary to be able to be qualified to do what do you call a park plan for the 100 acres.
Well, I know that's what we're getting at, but the word adding to something, I didn't know exactly what you meant. Is this going to be a separate document?
Maybe I could help a little bit. So thank you. So tomorrow I have probably what's the last meeting with the architect about the agreement, the proposed agreement, before it goes to the village attorney for review. So that's well on its way, and hopefully maybe even at the next board meeting we'll have that architectural agreement, which would be great. And then after that is done, I'll shift over immediately to continuing to work on the RFQ for park planning services. And I think just like when I was developing the RFQ for architectural services, I took from my experience in my previous community when we did architectural projects, and I also looked at other communities that had done architectural projects like Vermont and New Lenox and stuff and got their RFQs. So I'm going through that same process for an RFQ for park planning services. And it's really common with park planning service, master park planning services, that you include things like tree surveys. So a part of that RFQ would be that we would expect all the trees to belong to the property and what shape they're in and things of that nature. If you needed to look at stormwater and things of that nature, those would all be included in an RFQ for park planning services. And then what happens is sometimes you have a consultant, like we had with Housel Levine as an example. Housel Levine did 90% of that plan that you just saw, but they actually, if you remember, they hired a couple other consulting partners, because you met them when they did their presentation a couple years back. They hire other consulting partners, so they might hire a tree expert to do the tree survey. They might bring on an engineering firm to look at the drainage on the property. So that's, I think, Mayor, that's what you're referencing?
Yeah.
An RFQ for park planning and expanding it to include other aspects of the property, like drainage and trees and things of that nature.
Does that answer your question?
Well, that encourages some other questions. Are you saying that you are recommending HR Green again?
No, I didn't say that at all. I never said that. No, I don't think HR Green does park planning. I don't think they do park planning, no. But there are a number of large firms that do. I would expect it probably would not be as competitive as the architectural RFQ because we got so many. There's so many architectural firms. There aren't as many park planning firms, but I still would expect it to be very competitive. I would guess that we would get somewhere between 5 and 10 proposals.
I'm just asking, why do we narrow it to a park planning firm when there are so many firms out there that do environmental assessments? They don't have to be tagged as park planners. There's more to it on this property than just what you mentioned.
Right. I don't think maybe I'm not being clear. If we're going to do a master park plan, quite often, as a part of a master park plan, communities choose to look at other parts of the property as a part of that master park plan. So they do RFQs that include park planning and looking at the assets of the property, like trees, looking at the existing assets, and looking at problems, which would be, in this case, probably drainage, maybe traffic flow, things of that nature. So a park planning company might bring in a traffic sub. They might bring in an engineer to look at the water, and they might bring in a tree expert. So it's part of an overall plan that would have multiple tentacles, probably. Now, you could obviously do it independently. You could hire just a park planning company. You could hire just a tree reviewer. You could hire just an engineering firm. You could hire a traffic expert. You could hire them all independently. But what happens sometimes when you do that is they don't always work together. So if you hire just one contractor, a park planning company, and then you say that these are other things that are required, then there's more coordination typically. So,
yeah, I agree with you. And I think we're talking about the first one under new business, but I think it actually basically is the same answer for the second one. Is this firm that'll come in with an RFQ, it'll be understood that we're looking for clarity on multiple layers, and like Cam said, which may involve bringing in multiple subcontractors that their specialty is more designed towards environmental, somebody else's is designed more for traffic flow, somebody else is more in line with the balancing of the property, if that's what's going to take place. So I think you just make it clear that as you go out for RFQ that you want these items here addressed in the submittal, or basically don't submit.
Well, I'm not. My reason for recommending a consultant is to have as much of a comprehensive overview as possible. So the result is total. It's not just for certain sections of it or certain layers. So it's a firm that may or may not be a park planner. I'm just looking for evaluation of this property in as many different ways as possible.
Can I make a comment on that?
Sure, go
I
ahead.
know what you're talking about, and I just passed out something. What I'd like everyone to do when they get a chance is to take a look at this. We just recently did a Long Run Creek watershed plan. In that plan, and it's not out publicly other than on websites. It's on a website for www.longruncreek.com or .org. You can get it either way. Woodbine property has a specific recommendation in it. And they did assess this property already. There's been a lot of work done in this watershed plan. And if you take a look at that, you may find you might not need to do this environmental study because they've been to every detention pond in the entire watershed. They've been to 185 detention ponds. They've looked at everything. They've done their assessment. They know that this was a prairie/wetland area on Woodbine. They already know where the wetland used to be, and they have made recommendations in the watershed plan to recreate the wetland, to restore it in its original area, and that would improve the water flow, it would improve the water quality, and it would really make it a beautiful setting. And it's on the north end of the property. So there's been a lot of work done already. I think that if we look at some of this stuff that's been done, that I think even if we were to talk to Applied Ecological Services, is a restoration wetland company. They're the ones that wrote the watershed plan. They are willing to come in and talk to us. In fact, we're getting ready to put out a presentation for the board for the watershed plan. So you might be interested to hear what they have to say about a piece of property. So it might be something you want to do before you make a decision here on hiring someone when you've already paid for it through an IEPA grant.
I think if I'm correct, it's pretty simple. You just add this to the RFQ. I know
there's going to be some environmental assessment, but Applied Ecological is a kind of a company, I think that Trustee Sabo is talking about.
Yeah, and I know there's been a bunch of work done on the property, on the environmental side. I'm just saying the next logical step in the approach for a park on that property is you have to identify somebody that's qualified to be able to work with, and what are their fees, what are you really interested in having them assess what you're interested in having on the park, and you basically encompass it in the RFQ that you sent out.
Well, my comment is I appreciate what applied ecological services has done. I mean, that would be very valuable. But we also need to have a complete assessment. So if that's added to it, we still need to have the evaluation. It's not just water.
Oh, yeah, I don't have a problem with it. They just, like I said before, you encompass your thoughts, what you'd like to be, what you'd like to have in that RFQ, and they need to understand that that has to be part of the work they're going to do on the property. George, you wanted to say something?
Well, my main concern is the flooding. I mean, that's what I want to make sure that everyone that lives around the golf course knows what is 100% secure. Trustee DeVivo, with what you had said a few minutes ago about having this company, we have a presentation for us. When is it planned for?
That probably could be within a month or so. The plan was just
sometime in August.
Yeah, sometime in August. The plan was just approved by IEPA, so they've accepted it. And right now we've been working with the company, with Applied Ecological, on a contract to decide how many copies and what type of presentation. So they're going to go to every municipality. They're going to come here, they're going to go to Orland, they're going to go to Lockport and Lamont. Those are the municipalities that contributed and participated in this watershed plan. So they're going to put on a specific presentation geared toward each one of them.
Okay. And with that being said, then we have an opportunity to be able to ask them questions because they know what we're looking for, and they can answer.
The amount of data is unbelievable. So.
This is an excellent opportunity with a piece of property this big to solve any drainage problem that's out there. You may have to do additional detention. You may have to increase the existing detention to take care of certain things, but we, at the end of the day, I will guarantee you we will be able to take care of the drainage problems in Woodland.
I just want to make sure.
So Trustee Yukich, we would tell Applied that we, of course, want the whole presentation, because it's really a great study, actually, but if they could focus particularly on Woodbine property, that would be really helpful. We would tell them that in advance so they would expect it.
Well, that's why we set everyone's mind at ease, too, with what's going on over there. And they can address every possible option out there.
Right.
And if I'm correct, I think looking at number 2 in new business, it pretty much is the same thing where whoever you're going to decide to work with, I mean.
Mayor, on that one, Marcia had mentioned, and you may not have heard it at the beginning of the meeting, but her committee, when we originally did the rules and regulations, when we developed those, her committee had a subcommittee, and they worked for months actually on it. It's really a very comprehensive plan, but it clearly needs to be broadened because of Woodbine. So she formed a subcommittee last night at her Park and Recreation Committee meeting and has asked me to get in touch with Westmont and the other communities that she's doing these tours to for these larger parks to get their rules and regulations that deal with these larger parks, and then to feed those copies to her subcommittee so that she can start developing this over the next couple months, right? I need to keep talking to you. So she's kind of already started that ball rolling, and we'll keep the whole board apprised of that as it moves forward, just like you did the last time. You reported on that on a monthly basis.
Okay, does that... Go ahead.
Thank you. I think, I believe Woodbine, there should be input on environmental issues as we were talking about, but the Environment Committee should be working in tandem with Parks Committee on some of these environmental issues, because I think light and noise pollution should be addressed by Environment Committee. Other ideas, for example, would be some of our sensory gardens that we discussed. That should be studied by the Environment Committee, including landscaping that will hold up on the park usage. These are just a few of the ideas that can be worked on in conjunction with the Park Committee. When the time comes, the Environment Committee can also assist in determining regulations as to how the area can be fully utilized in the future to keep it totally eco-friendly and to have and to make sure there's no negative impacts on certain types of recreation that might impact the environment there.
Well, like I've said a number of times now, I think we're putting the cart before the horse here. We need to put together an RFQ of all the things that we'd like to see addressed on that property, anywhere from drainage to tree surveys to security for the property, for everything. And you go out to RFQ, you have people submit their qualifications, and it was, we did this with the building. It was very productive. I think we got a great firm. At the end of the day, you're going to have a wonderful village hall. The same process has to take place now with the property. So, I mean, this will all be addressed within an RFQ for whoever gets selected. They're not going to get selected without convincing us that they're qualified to do this. We'll go through the same process, and is everybody in agreement with that?
Well, I just have a question. I mean, of course we want qualified people. That's not an issue. And you want somebody qualified that will evaluate the total property. But when you say put down a list of things that you would like to see, there may be more that we don't know that we have listed that will bubble up. Excuse me. So you just. Just putting a list in and say, I want these things addressed is not enough. So,
I'll let you catch your voice for a second.
So I could address that a little bit. So, whenever you do an RFQ, there's always stuff that comes up later. And oftentimes when you're doing the interviews, as Trustee Costa could attest when we were doing the building interviews, things came up during those interviews that we maybe hadn't thought of, and it added to the discussion and actually worked them into the agreement and things of that nature. So the same thing will happen with this one. This one is a harder document to develop than the architectural RFQ was. This one is, because it has a lot more tentacles to it. But I think I'll put together a good draft and we'll submit it to everybody to take a look. And then we'll put it out there, we'll get a response back, and over time we may decide to add things, and that will be fine up until the point where we have an agreement with some company, to work with us.
Yeah, don't get it wrong that, somebody's just going to devise something and send it out. I mean, it's going to be for your review, and everybody will work on it, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of good ideas shared to put this document together, and at the end of the day, I'm sure we'll get a very qualified firm, and nobody's sending anything out until the board sees it.
Oh, okay, I've caught my voice. I hear my voice now.
Okay.
All right. And that brings to mind that when the assessment is done, there are going to be some ideas that we will need to address, and that the board will need to address, so that there would be topics that we would like the Park and Recreation Committee to focus on. And I don't believe that we'll know those things until we come back with the results. So I'm not in disagreement with this process. I think that this process is the thing to do. The results may be surprising, and then there are other things besides that to address, and that may come up as the trustees have ideas. The mayor mentioned security. Other things are, how can we protect our residents? And I would like all the trustees to think about some things. This is a very large piece of property, and we have not had such a large piece of property, so it's more than, there might be individual concepts here that have to have some special attention. More specific regulations, and we have to look at the big picture.
I agree with you, but there has to be a starting block somewhere. And the starting block is to what the village manager is suggesting, and also Trustee DeVivo, and compiling data from other locations, so that anything we want to add to or make a specific mark for Homer Glen on this property, we can incorporate it. But there has to be a starting point, and the starting point begins by the village manager putting together an RFQ that he passes to us, and you may say, well, it's missing this, it's missing that, it's missing this, it's missing that. So that's what I'm recommending, is that the village manager gets to work on it now that the RFQ, now that the architectural contract has been awarded, and start working on it.
Well, that's why the trustees had recommended this be put on the agenda, but so we have to have a starting point.
Yeah, that's if everybody's in agreement,
yeah,
that's what we'll do.
Okay, and then there's something else I think that we need to, I'd like the manager to do, or anyone can add to it, is that we'd like to know what the steps are in the process. You know, what it's not just the plan, it's not just the Parks and Recreation Committee, it's other stuff. What is the procedure, so that we know where we are and what is going to take place? For example, on page 3, there's an FRQ, here we go again, and that Mayor Daley had previously given staff the directive to begin the process of developing a park planning FRQ. So
Just a typo.
it's a typo.
Should be
That's just
RFQ.
a typo.
Well, there is such a thing as an FRQ.
What is it?
It's a response question.
Oh, yeah, no, I think that's just a typo. Heather just,
Yeah.
a little typo.
Why don't we?
And one of the things I've been doing is I've been researching, asking some of my colleagues, like I just came back from my conference, have you done a big park? Have you done a big park? Have you done a big park? I've been trying to gather some of these documents from other communities, in addition to the experience I have from Cary where we did a big park plan. So I've been trying to do all that. That's kind of in response to the mayor asked me to do that maybe a month or so ago.
So why don't we do this? Kim, if you can, because we can sit here and talk about this all night, can you put some type of a timeline together for what you intend to achieve by a certain date? And
right.
As you reach those goals, just keep everybody apprised.
I will. Probably not this week, but I will. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All right.
If that's okay.
I think that's good, because that shows us where we are, that shows us what we have to do, that shows us what the next step is, so that's very important.
I really just real briefly, really been focusing on the architectural stuff to get that done, because it is a little bit more complicated than you might imagine, so I've been really focusing on that. After that's done, then we're just going to start rolling on the park stuff. So.
Okay, is there any further statements on that? Okay, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
First by, who was that guy? Trustee Costa?
Second.
Second by Trustee Yukich. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Meeting adjourned.